1. To set the scene, this was around a week ago. It was doomsday. The day 70% of our staff got fired, temporarily we all hope. Restaurant and bar have to stay closed as per order by the government. Breakfast is only served upon request and only a la carte. Most of our kitchen staff gone. We have 264 rooms and an average occupancy rate of 85%. On a normal day, our housekeeping staff amounts to about 15 people. Now it's 1 or 2. Most of our housekeeping staff gone. A colleague who recently got promoted to revenue manager and is about to have his first child, gone. Marketing gone. I'm at the front desk. Since we've decided to stay open, I'm one of the lucky ones who get to keep their job. Doomsday and lots of tears, lots of suppressed urges to hug. You know, you don't want to spread the germs. It was an absolutely awful day all around. This and the following day, however, was to be handled as usual. The restaurant and bar were still open, but everyone was gloomy AF. In comes LDL, our loud drunk lady, and HS, her slave. LDL has a heavy accent, and it's difficult to understand. This, however, does not prompt her to talk less. Slower and at a normal volume.
Hello? I want the room. How much? You have no idea what we just went through with this king of the kingofthecities. How much is that the room?
Hello and welcome. Sure, we have rooms available. Due to the current situation, you're in luck. I can offer you a standard room for €80, including
I want travel agents. I know everything.
What? HS stands behind her and smiles at me sheepishly. Alright, lovely to have you here. I'll need a credit card for auth.
I know, now let me just see this. I am not sure there's enough money on this card because, we were just went skiing and they tried to charge it, but it didn't work. Well, this is a prepaid card, but maybe there's enough on it now. No, I forgot. I put some beer on the train.
Yes. Let's just see if I can authorize the card, and if that doesn't work, we'll see what we can do. On a day like this, I'll just take her passport as a deposit if her card is declined, and she manages to pay the room up front. Meanwhile, to get things over with, I try to involve HS by making him fill in the registration form. All the time, she is trying to explain to me why her card might be declined, and the authorization went through. After a nerve-wracking 20-minute check-in trying to explain the hotel to them, breakfast is from 6 a.m. to...
I know! The Wi-Fi is called... I know! Where do I find breakfast?
I finally get them going. On the way to the elevator, she spots a bar.
Oh my!
I hear a cry of delight as she beelines towards the bar, suitcases left in the middle of the lobby, and she orders 2 beers and schnapps, and proceeds to torture the next poor soul with stories that serve to only numb whatever goes on in her brain. This, and the fact that she basically has the whole hotel to herself, sets the stage for dear LDL. She basks in the spotlight and the echo of our empty lobby as she tells everyone everything. HS, meanwhile, sits at the bar quietly and drinks his beer and schnapps. 3 more rounds in, during which I've taken their luggage and moved it towards the bar near them. She spots me again. My name, unfortunately, happens to be popular in the area she's from, so she calls me the pet name version of it.
Janski. There. How old are you?
28.
Well, it doesn't matter. I got a very handsome son, he won't mind. He's a very famous ice hockey player where I'm from. Aunties in politics. Always traveling. Such a beautiful man. Wait, I'll show you on Facebook.
Not like I can just leave, lady, don't you worry. I'll be here to admire that beautiful son of yours. She actually runs to HS and starts searching the jacket he is still wearing for a phone, commands him to unlock it, and runs back to me. The Facebook profile photo of her son is him in a suit, crossed arms, blurry blue background, edges around the head far too crisp, which screams Huawei portrait setting, and a very, very stern look directly into the camera. Beard attempted to be kept well, but unfortunately, the kind that is better to be shaved off. Wow. Beautiful man that, I say. You must be very proud of him.
What's your Facebook? I'll introduce you to him.
And this is where I pretend to suddenly have so much to do in the back office. I apologize and duck whenever I see her next. In one day, they managed to rack up a bill of over €400, which is great. However, charging the authorization with that amount got declined, and they weren't able to stay the 9 days they'd initially planned. They left 3 days later, during which I ducked and hid every time she came around. She tried to get my phone number from my colleague even. Just what? The 3 guests we had since then were just as straining as this couple, but these are stories for another day. I hope all of you got to keep your jobs too in this time of crisis. My day-to-day routine at work is mind-numbingly boring, but bear in mind it's us who still get paid to pretty much do nothing. All the best to all of you. Stay safe. 2. Now, this story was told to me the day after it happened, and some of the details are from what I experienced the next day. I will try to make this as not confusing as I can, given that there are 2 perspectives in this story. There also isn't really a cast, as this is less a tale and more a summary of what happened. Also, it is important you know the property. We did more events, and less guests stayed with us. So, with that being said, our conference rooms were insane in their size, but we only had about 130 rooms to rent and sleep in. So with that being said, and without further ado, here we go. This happened years ago, and I was just a regular desk agent, but the hotel I had worked at agreed to have a nudist wedding. And yes, I mean the actual wedding in one of our conference rooms, as they were huge rooms that could fit a whole circus if we wanted. There were, of course, rules at sales to set up. Mainly, clothes were absolutely required in common areas. Now, the screw-up was there was a cash bar, and anybody that works a cash bar knows people do not hold back. Now, this wedding had booked almost all of our rooms. I'd say out of the 130 we had, they booked 100 of them, and our 2 largest conference rooms. The only other people outside of them were the staff, so that was a plus. And when the wedding started, they were fine, and pretty funny people, to be honest. As you can guess, nothing got crazy until the reception, which was held in the second room. The bartender was back in the room where the ceremony was held, as we can't serve food and drinks to people with no clothes on, I assume. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention with the why. As these people got drunk, they started getting more loose with the clothing policy in place. As it was explained to me, they started coming upstairs from the conference rooms in less and less clothing every time, until they eventually were just naked everywhere they went. Why the team on staff that night didn't do anything about it is beyond me, but had they done this, I wouldn't have the best part of the story. The nudists at this point were skinny dipping in the pool, running up and down the floors, chilling on the furniture in the lobby, and just enjoying themselves. I suspect staff didn't care, as they were all admiring said guests. Yes, really. But then it happened. There came screaming, laughing, and yelling from the second floor. Mind you, the second floor had a staircase that connected to the lobby, so when you walked down, you'd be looking straight at the front desk. The bride was coming down said stairs, shitting. She was actively moving down the stairs with this liquid coming out of her, and paid no mind to it. Finally, the desk took this as too much, and corralled her back to her room, with the help of the sober husband that had lost her. They also sent everyone else to their rooms, and had to call professional cleaners to take care of the mess. The kicker here, the cleaners were closed, and had to come in the next day. And this is where I come in. As I pull into the hotel, I see vans and literally people in masks, with some heavy-duty cleaners, I assume, coming in and out, also with big red bags. I step in the hotel and nearly vomit from the stench of alcohol, feces, and just human BO. Get to the desk, and finally have the events of the night recapped for me. I was crying at that point, but I don't know if that's because my nose was burning from all the smells, or just laughing that hard, but crying nonetheless. I leave and buy some masks for the staff that had to be on duty, but as you'd expect, we took no reservations that day, and just shut the hotel down. We had to be there to take phone calls, which the amount of angry people you can imagine was through the roof. The bright side was the bride called us back and could not have been more apologetic. She was extremely embarrassed, as you would guess, and not only paid all the cleaning fees, which I don't know the total of, gave every employee that worked that night about $200 for having to deal with her and the wedding party. She also accepted that the hotel will no longer be letting her and some of the others stay, and did not try to fight it. I'm glad that she at least knew what happened and accepted her monumental F-up, as I have had plenty of guests do things that make me scratch my head and wonder, although not to that scale. 3. So this happened a while ago. I'd been working as a front desk agent for about a week. It's my first time working at a hotel, so I'm still learning the ropes even though I'd previously worked as a check-in agent for a cruise line. I'm working the afternoon shift and things have been pretty slow. A couple of check-ins here and there and that's about it. It's about 7 p.m. when this lady, Libby, comes in, and after talking things out at the valet, makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings, and she tells me she would like to reserve a room, but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we're not a motel, so I let her know the minimum amount of time she could reserve a room for would be a full night. After asking what the price would be, $240, which is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, by the way, she agrees and hands me her credit card. This is where things get weird. As soon as I ask for ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and says she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation, and would like to make it under the name of the guy who would be joining her later instead. I pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room. I reassure her that only the employees would be able to see said list, and that no, the guy she was planning to meet wouldn't see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction, Libby had been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm just thinking she's here for a one-night stand, and doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something. Which I could work with, sure, but why not just actually get a motel lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asks me to make a note in the reservation so that, if at any point we need to address her by name around the dude, we wouldn't call her by her real name, and instead she gives me a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point I'm obviously bewildered, but still trying to be accommodating, and trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a pic of the dude so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key, and she heads to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in. We'll call him Jake. My co-worker, who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. To be honest, at this point I wasn't giving the whole thing much thought other than, that's a bit weird. Not even 30 minutes have passed since Jake went up, when Libby comes back down, hands me both keys, they'd both received one each, says, "Thank you," in the most serious yet cordial way, and then walks off. Multiple thoughts went through my mind as this lady is making her way to the valet. That was way too fast even for a quickie. Why the heck did she give me 2 keys? Where's Jake? Libby, please tell me you didn't murder Jake. Security is standing behind me, staring Libby down, probably having the same thought process as I am. The supervisor for security usually spends the night hanging out at front desk. My co-worker and I are whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because that did not look like a lady who had just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs and... Okay, we can breathe, he's not dead. Now what happened next? We couldn't see, because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers, like 30, I wanted to die. So I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck had actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then, the worker from the valet came over, and boy did he have some tea to spill. Turns out Libby had gone so far as asking the valet guy to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible. Why? Because it turns out that Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away to her husband? Well, dear reader, because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl Jake was cheating on her with. This woman, somehow, got her cheating-ass husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This bamf of a woman came back downstairs, after probably massacring the heck out of this idiotic boy, with not a hair out of place, and calmly had the valet bring both of their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake Schmake to get his sorry ass back to the lobby, so she could extend her hand and demand their house keys from him. She then got into her car and just drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake Schmake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I like to think she had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting to the hotel? Point is, this woman is all I aspire to be. 4. Working at a side of the highway hotel with cheap rates within 20 miles of a major population center, you're bound to see some riffraff, some rough customers, and some rolling stones passing through here and there. Now, of course, most of the time you'll wind up with pleasant folks who either travel for a living or otherwise just have some common decency and understanding. But in my experience, it is the off-color people that stick in your mind. Today I tell you the story of a man who was both. He was charming upon arrival, but had all the grace and nicety of a chud when he re-arrived as a stayover, not really a typical stayover, because he didn't stay in the same room. Our story begins. I am young and working long weeks at a less than luxurious property, but decent enough to have a well-trained staff. It was off the highway, so it was pretty much made to accommodate the nearby growing metropolis. I am working evening shift 3 to 10 p.m., which sucks because it is when people are checking in and most of the problems that will come up during this shift. Whether they don't have the right kind of payment, they find hair in the bed, and what have you. A man arrives at the beginning of the shift to check in early. I will call this man Momo, on account that he was a Momo chowderhead. How should I describe Momo upon this first encounter? He was casually dressed, and seemed a casual man. Average height and build, tattered ball cap, and a soft demeanor. He seemed like a dad. He had an aged face for 40, the kind that looks like he's been smoking cigarettes since he was 8 years old. Momo had a top-tier membership in our rewards program, but acted like someone who didn't even have one. No hoity-toity bullshit at all. He paid with a card and didn't give me any grief about having to wait for a while for me to log in, as he came during the shift change. Basically, he was the best kind of check-in. Fast forward to the following evening. The housekeepers had a lot of checkouts, so they were still cleaning rooms when I got there. The inspector for some of the floors comes and lets me know that I just need to put a room out of order because the guest soiled the bed and they need to change the mattress topper. I couldn't believe it when I checked the reservation and saw it was Momo's reservation. Literally shocked, I brush it off and get a little bit further into the shift. I chanced to notice Momo is also on the arrivals list. Fuck. Okay. I decide to talk to my manager and he gets a belly laugh out of the situation. He said we can't charge him or deny him a room because of what could have been a legitimate medical accident. Fair enough. But a 48-year-old man with no kids or peers with him, happening to be incontinent, is a little out there. Shit, by the way, not urine. Relief. I noticed that his card wouldn't pre-authorize for $1, which we run then release to validate cards on file. His phone number on file did not work either. We were close to selling out, so I figured maybe, just maybe, I could delete his reservation and turn him away later. But the manager told me to give him more time because of his membership tier. 30 minutes later, Momo re-enters, has the same pleasant attitude despite having shat the bed in the building the night before. Now all of his endearing qualities just seemed wrong. But of course I meet him with the obligatory glib. "Hello, welcome back, Mr. Momo." "Hello again. I'll tell you, I absolutely love this place." So on and so forth. "Hey, so I tried to give you a call earlier. The card on file seems to have expired or something. It wouldn't go through." Momo has a confused frown. Declined. What? No, I know there's money on there. I just loaded it on there this morning. I tried to run it again. I tried to run it just for the room tax and not incidentals. I tried to run it for $1. Nothing works. I'm sorry, sir, but it's still not going through. Do you have another card you could put it on? Could you call the bank? He has no other money and opts to call the bank. For the next 3 hours, he lingers on hold and on the phone with people from his bank in my goddamn lobby. He is getting testy with them, and seems to be trying to maintain some kind of pride to me. It's kind of funny, because a few times he got on the phone with people, and then he would come up and matter-of-fact put them on speaker to back up his claims like, "Dude, I literally don't give a fuck, I just work here. My job right now is just to break the news that no money equals no room." At this point, we were sold out, so cancelling his room could free up more space to sell another room with a little less of a shaky situation. And I get a sick satisfaction out of asking people to seek accommodations elsewhere. So I asked the manager if I could cancel the reservation. He says that because of its tier and the fact that he is here and trying to secure payment, I can't cancel it. This macabre charade continues for fucking ever and a day. I remember I prepared to tell the next shift about the situation because I thought I was going to have to leave with this jokester piddle farting in the lobby. Given that this man came in at 5 o'clock, that is a long time. Finally, just like 30 minutes before the shift swap, he secures the payment, and I get him checked in. The next part is the real kicker. I don't know if this Jekyll and Hyde pudding head was playing some kind of sick joke on me, just as I'm telling the auditor the literal and metaphorical crap this man did and closing my shift out. Like the devil, Momo appears at my shoulder. "How much for Coke and gummy worms?" $6 total. Would you like to put that on the room? Yes, that price is accurate. No, I want to put it on a different card. A different card, you say? Oh, okay. He pulls out his bank card, different from the one on file. Turns out, he just didn't want to use his bank card. That was worth 6 hours of the most uncomfortable lobby of all time. Finn. I don't know what else to say. Like I said, I have seen some oddballs in the hotel business. But gee, if Momo wasn't something special. 5. A quick bit about myself. I spent approximately 17 years in the hospitality industry, and have worked just about every position in the industry. In 2019, I decided to leave for the much less chaotic job of a 911 dispatcher. In the time I was in the industry, I've seen a few things, as I'm certain most of you have. The following are my stories. In this time of anxiety, fear, and uncertainty, I thought it best to start off with a bittersweet story of how not all guests are horrible monsters. Before I get too deep into the story, let me make a quick description of our room types. All in all, nothing out of the ordinary. We had the standard kings and double queens. The exception to this would be the hospitality and suite rooms we had. These were simply a living room setup with a hot tub, own bath, wet bar, and a pull-out sleeper sofa. It did have a mini fridge, coffee maker, and TV. These rooms usually were not sold by themselves. They usually went along with the connecting king room. Although in a pinch, when occupancy was high, we were to rent these out at rack. At the time this took place, I'd probably been working in the industry for no more than 3 months, and was probably just finishing up my first month of night audit. I worked at a fairly busy downtown location that almost always had 100% occupancy on the weekends, and no less than 85% on weekdays. One of the reasons we always had such a high occupancy was that this location was contracted out with the local VA hospital for anyone that was traveling away from home for treatments, and wasn't able to make it back home because it just wasn't feasible to make the commute. It was normal for families of those VA patients to come in on the weekends to visit them and stay at the hotel. They had a special rate that was quite a considerable bit less than rack, however. This had to be booked in advance through the VA and could never be done at the desk for a walk-in. In the short time I'd been in the industry, I had seen that most of the guests I'd be dealing with were quite needy and arrogant individuals that seemed to view the front desk staff as some subhuman species below their lofty standard. I thank the rewards program for helping foster this environment, but that's a rant for another day. The night our tale starts was a ridiculously busy weekend, and for once, I'd had all my arrivals checked in that night before I even began my shift at 11 p.m. that Friday night. And as a bonus, there were no departures or arrivals scheduled for the following Saturday, so that implied I'd have a relatively stress-free weekend. I did, however, have one empty room that I was instructed to sell at full price. It was one of the hospitality and suite rooms. So the night has progressed to 2 a.m. and not a soul has ventured into my doors. That is until this extremely tired and frazzled-looking woman and her family, 2 teens and a husband, walked in with their baggage. She was in town to visit her father, who was at the VA. Apparently he was staying with us, but his health took a turn for the worse and he was moved from the hotel to the hospital. She says they need a double at the VA family rate. Internally, I prepare for the confrontation when I explain that we only have the hospitality and suite room available, and I can't do the VA rate. I explain to the lady what we have available and the rate I have to charge because of policy. Instead of her arguing or trying to frighten me into lowering the rate and making a double room appear out of thin air, she is surprisingly understanding and says she knows it's last minute, and she should have booked through the VA. She was just so frazzled with rushing to get down here. She agrees to the rate. If memory serves, it would have been $40 to $60 above VA family rate, and the room type I have available for the weekend. The only thing she asks for is some extra pillows and bedding to make pallets for the children on the floor. I have security get those up to the room. On Saturday, shortly after I start my shift, the lady comes down and wants to thank me for getting them a room and being hospitable. Once she leaves the desk, I don't think much more of it, and I'm fairly certain that I won't have to come back to this situation. Well, for the next several months, the lady, sometimes alone and sometimes with her family, becomes a regular every weekend because her dad isn't doing well. Every weekend the reservation is made in advance through the VA. If I'm not the one that checks them in, she always makes a point of stopping by the front desk to say hello or talk for a little bit about things. I ended up taking a mini vacation and going to see some friends about 8 hours away. I come back to my first audit shift and there is an envelope waiting for me behind the desk. Inside is a letter from the lady saying that her father had passed away and thanked me for always being there behind the front desk with a smile and a kind word from the first night they showed up. With the letter was a $100 gift card to Applebee's. I learned a valuable lesson that night, that the kindness and things we do working the front desk may not matter to most of our guests, and most of our guests may not appreciate us. But there are those few that truly appreciate the hospitality we offer, and it does have an impact on their lives. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw number 36. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, you heard a couple of mentions of people losing their jobs due to the current situation. And I did mention this, I mentioned it on Twitter, and I did mention this in a community post on YouTube. But I don't want to say it in a video as well for those who may have missed it. I greatly appreciate everyone who supports me through Patreon. It means a lot to me. It's allowed me to do a lot with this channel. It's allowed me to fund this channel, build equipment up and replace new equipment. And while I'm very appreciative of it, I will understand if you need to stop supporting during this time. Be that permanently or just temporarily until things improve. Because I understand a lot of people are out of work right now, not just in the hotel industry, all across the world. Businesses have shut down and some employers are doing what they can to support their employees, others either through willful ignorance or simply because they're just not able to, have fired their employees or effectively fired their employees. So in some cases people will have jobs to go back to, in other cases, well, maybe not so much. So with that in mind, you need to be taking care of yourself. You need to be your own focus, because I'm not messing around when I tell you at the end of this video to take good care of yourself. It's important to me that I know that everyone is focused on themselves and their family, and certainly isn't putting themselves out for the likes of me. So for those of you who may need to or may have forgotten you were supporting me, it's alright if you need to stop. Please do so with my understanding and with my love. Okay, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.